Beneath Japan's quiet temples and neon skylines lies a far older world, one carved not by machines, but by hands, minds, or forces now forgotten. Colossal stones balanced with improbable precision, tombs so vast they can only be understood from above. And deep in the sea, a monument whose stairways rise toward the surface like the last breath of a sunken city. These are structures that shouldn't exist, yet there they are, silent, stubborn, and unclaimed by memory. If you think Japan's mysteries end with samurai and shrines, think again. This is Japan's lost age of stone. And if uncovering the impossible truly means something to you, then subscribe. Beneath the turquoise waters off Okinawa lies the Yonaguni Monument, one of Japan's great geological or archaeological enigmas. On calm days, sunlight spills to the ocean like a magnifying glass, revealing terraces, staircases, and sharply defined edges rising from the seafloor, as of the ruins of a drowned metropolis. It stretches nearly 100 meters in length, 25 meters high. Its planes so geometric that divers struggle to believe nature shaped them alone. When it was first spotted in 1986 by diver Kihachiro Aratake, he thought he had discovered Atlantis. What he actually found was a boundary line where geology and ancient human history blur. Seen up close, the structure unfolds like a massive stone temple. Broad platforms lead into corridors. A sweeping staircase climbs toward what looks like a ceremonial summit. Everything seems aligned with intention. Many features even line up with the cardinal directions. And this isn't fragile limestone carved by rushing water. It's hard, layered sandstone, resistant to erosion, and not easily coaxed into perfect angles. Across its surface, divers trace what appear to be pathways, plinths, and even a giant face etched into the rock staring eternally into the blue. The deeper they go, the stranger becomes. Rectangular halls, triangular plazas, step terraces arranged so logically that the entire formation feels designed for feet, not fins. Yet this land has been underwater for at least 10,000 years, long before any known Japanese civilization built in stone. What makes the puzzle more compelling is its sheer scale. The base covers an area larger than the footprint of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Blocks interlock as though purposefully fitted. Vertical seams cut through the rock at angles too straight to dismiss. Some sections rise in 7 near-perfect steps whose proportions echo later Shinto architectural platforms separated by millennia. Surrounding the central mass lie isolated boulders shaped like gates, walls, and altar stones as if an ancient complex was scattered by earthquakes before the sea consumed it. In the 1990s, marine geologists began mapping the monument and found a pattern they did not expect. Corridors that run almost perfectly straight, floors that sit at consistent elevations, terraces that repeat with an uncanny symmetry. To hover above Yonaguni is to look down on a map, a layout, rather than a random accident of nature. Professor Masaaki Kimura of the University of the Ryukyus argues that the monument is artificial, created by a prehistoric culture lost at the end of the last ice age. His sonar scans reveal what he interprets as roads, retaining walls, plazas, and even a pyramid-like temple at the monument's highest point. He believed the sea level was once 30 meters lower, placing the entire structure on dry land around 10 millennia ago. That would make Yonaguni one of the oldest engineered stoneworks on Earth. Kimura has even identified what appear to be carved symbols and clean geometric grooves, more reminiscent of engineering than erosion. Mainstream geologists disagree. Sandstone, they argue, naturally forms horizontal planes. Earthquakes can fracture them into tidy steps and shelves. They see the stairways as breakage, the corridors as eroded bedding planes, the plazas as simple erosion. But if nature carved it, why does it so convincingly mimic architectural logic? Why does it repeat patterns rare in spontaneous rock formations? And if humans built it, where is the evidence of their tools, their dwellings, their culture? The currents around Yonaguni erase fragile clues quickly. What remains are shapes and patterns that refuse to sit comfortably in either explanation. Even conservative researchers admit parts of formation may have been human-modified, perhaps an ancient cliff sanctuary enhanced by early stoneworkers and later drowned by rising seas. Others believe it could be a sacred site carved long before written history, built by a culture wiped out by floods whose memories survive only in myths. Some link it to the legendary lost continent of Mu or connect it to folk tales of Ryugu-jo. the palace beneath the sea where time flows differently. Maybe such stories preserve faint echoes of a drowned world. Archaeologists now understand that prehistoric Japan was far more sophisticated than previously believed. The Jaman people built stone circles, tracked celestial movements, and shaped ritual landscapes with intention. If they could align stars and seasons, might they also have carved cliffs into ceremonial stages for the sea? As the currents wash over Yonaguni's terraces, the truth stays hidden, locked under salt and pressure. Its edges soften year by year, as if time wishes to erase the debate entirely. Is it a city of the Ice Age, a sacred platform carved and later abandoned, or simply a geological marvel sculpted into coincidence? Whatever it is, it stirs an ancient instinct, the sense that civilizations rise and fall like tides, and that sometimes the past lies not beneath the soil, but beneath the ocean. Far from the coast, in the quiet hills of Asuka, another enigma sits alone on a gentle slope. Masuda-no-Iwafune, an 800-ton block of granite carved with impossible precision. It measures 11 meters in length, 8 meters in width, 4 meters in height, all cut directly from bedrock. Its sides are unerringly straight, its plane smooth, its geometry crisp. 2 square holes pierce the top like sockets meant to hold a mechanism long since removed. When sunlight strikes its surfaces, the shadows reveal intentional angles, purpose without explanation. Surrounded by 2 mounds and early Buddhist stones, Masuda-no-Iwafune feels both ancient and strangely futuristic, as if it belongs to a civilization that mastered stone but left no stories behind. Travelers describe a sense of engineered presence, like encountering a machine without its moving parts. Yet no inscription identifies its maker, no record mentions its purpose, and no tool marks remain to reveal how it was shaped. It is simply there, massive, mute, and unclaimed, waiting for someone to remember what Japan has already forgotten. It stands alone, too large to move, too perfect to dismiss. The Osaka region was Japan's earliest political cradle, a landscape of temples, imperial tombs, and ceremonial stonework that flourished more than a millennium before Nara became the capital. Yet nothing in Asuka resembles Masuda-no-Iwafune. Ordinary Kofun tombs are earthen mounds or chambers assembled from boulders hauled into place by laborers. This monolith, however, is carved directly from the mountain itself, as though someone began shaping a stone vessel and simply abandoned it mid-voyage. Its angles are so sharp they evoke machining rather than chiseling. 2 channels run across the top and meet at twin square sockets, like conduits built for something mechanical, luminous, or astronomical. Its name, the stone ship, comes from whispered legends that it was meant to carry spirits skyward. But the vessel never sailed. Instead, it rests on the hillside, staring west toward the setting sun, as if forever awaiting instructions. Clues point in different directions. Archaeologists observe deliberate leveling across its planes, horizontal and vertical cuts executed with precision rarely seen in the 7th century. The 2 square depressions are identical in depth and spacing, their inner edges unnaturally clean, suggesting metal tools rather than rudimentary chisels. Nearby stands the Ishibutai Kofun, assembled from colossal slabs that required immense technical skill, proving Asuka's stoneworkers were capable of extraordinary feats. Some researchers argue Masuda-no-Iwafune was an unfinished tomb core, abandoned when its patron died. Others believe it could have been an astronomical platform, the twin sockets used to support wooden sighting poles for tracking solstices or lunar cycles. Its long axis roughly aligns east, west, while the slope beneath faces due south, a detail that invites astronomical speculation even if it does not confirm it. The landscape around it offers more puzzles. Carved Buddhist figures, turtle-shaped stones, and what look like half-formed pillars lie scattered across the hills, hinting that Asuka once hosted a broader stoneworking tradition cut short for reasons unknown. If Masuda-no-Iwafune was a tomb, why carve it from a movable bedrock instead of assembling blocks like every other Kofun? If it was an observatory, why are there no others of its kind anywhere in Japan? The labor required to carve, smooth, and shape an 800-ton mass of granite would have taken months of coordinated effort. Yet there is no inscription, no legend, no imperial document linking it to any known builder. Its flat surface shows surprisingly little erosion despite centuries of rain, either due to once-present protective layers or craftsmanship, so exact that water never lingers long enough to carve channels. The terrain around it has shifted, but the monolith has not, anchored as though fused to intention itself. Folklore offers possibilities where archaeology grows silent. Some say the stone fell from the heavens, a fragment of celestial craft that taught ancient people how to carve mountains. Others claim a chamber lies hidden beneath it, sealed by forgotten engineers. Archaeologists dismiss the cosmic interpretations politely, yet none can fully explain why or how the object exists. Ancient astronaut theorists go further, insisting it was part of a vanished machine for measuring or generating energy, its twin sockets designed for conductive rods or crystalline pillars. They compare it to myths of descending heavenly ships that guided early rulers. More conventional scholars counter the idea of a survey marker. Yet the structure is far too large and too refined for such a mundane purpose, and without nearby quarry debris or clear tool marks, its creation seems sudden, almost abrupt. In a region where every stone once carried religious meaning or political importance, Masuda-no-Iwafune remains mute. Even its granite defies expectations. Local, yet shaped so precisely in situ that no seams or cleaving fractures reveal how the sculptors approach their work. Today moss gathers along its base, wildflowers nestling in its creases, but the upper planes remain astonishingly crisp. Tourists climb the flat top, unaware that they walk across what may have once been a ritual platform aligned to stars. Drone footage reveals its silhouette sliding through green hills like a ship trapped in time. At sunset, its shadow stretches like the keel of a stranded vessel across the rice fields below. Scholars still arrive with scanners and modeling equipment, hoping to decode subtle tool patterns or hidden geometries. Yet each new survey returns the same contradiction. Every detail suggests deliberate design, and every hypothesis fails to fully explain its purpose. Perhaps its enigma is intentional. Perhaps Masuda-no-Iwafune was never meant to travel, but to remind that Japan's story in stone began not with temples, but with questions carved into granite. And so it waits, the ship that never sailed, holding its silence like breath against the wind, inviting each generation to wonder who shaped it and why the work abruptly stopped. Far to the west in Hyōgo, another mystery rises from the earth. Ishi-no-Hōden, a monolith that appears to float. Locals call it a rock sanctuary, a stone so immense it should sit heavily upon the ground, yet somehow seems to hover above a sacred pond. It stands 8 meters tall, weighing more than 500 tons, its presence overwhelming and impossible to ignore. At sunrise the valley fills with mist, and the block appears suspended in midair, its underside separated from the stone below. The illusion is so perfect it unsettles even seasoned researchers. Approaching the site feels like stepping into a boundary between physics and faith. Water gathers below the monolith, reflecting its image like a mirror and forming the illusion of a completed cube. One half floating above, one half revealed in the pool. The monolith is carved on every side except its hidden base, which remains attached to the mother rock by a narrow spine. From the front, that connection is invisible, creating the sense that the structure levitates freely above the water. Its corners are crisp, its surface is smooth, its geometry so precise that it appears cast rather than carved. The surrounding walls bear evenly spaced grooves, tool marks so regular they resemble machine work. Yet the entire structure is carved from a single mass of native tuff. Local Shinto tradition holds that the stone is the dwelling of Oshiko Gongen, a deity of creation and craftsmanship. The pond beneath, believed bottomless, was once used for purification rites. Priests gaze upon their reflections before entering the nearby shrine. But the monolith's true origin predates all written accounts. No inscription declares a purpose. No ancient texts record the workers or patrons behind it. It stands as though caught between quarry and temple, neither fully extracted nor fully finished. Archaeological surveys show that thousands of tons of rock were removed to free the block, yet no significant quarry debris remains nearby. The surfaces bear intersecting grooves, their angles nearly perfect. Radiocarbon studies of surrounding soil suggest the carving predates the Han influence by centuries and may align with the Asuka or early Kofun periods, the same era that produced the riddle of Masuda-no-Iwafune. A small wooden shrine now rests beside the stone, dwarfed by its immensity, as if later generations adopted a sacred object they could not explain. Here, too, the enigma endures. A monolith too large to move, too precise to ignore, suspended between earth and water, as though shaped by a culture far more capable and far more mysterious than history remembers. During the rainy season, the pond beneath the monolith swells, rising just high enough that the stone appears to float entirely above the water's surface. Locals call it the floating stone of the gods. From the air, it resembles a cube descending from the mountain. So deliberate in form it seems engineered, yet too ancient to belong to any known technology. Geologists insist the illusion is nothing more than clever perspective, the hidden bedrock connection responsible for the entire effect. They claim ancient stonemasons were simply quarrying a massive block and abandoned the job midway. But that theory collapses under closer study. The base plane isn't a rough break. It's a polished, concave surface clearly shaped to catch the pond's reflection, as if the sculptor intended the water itself to complete the form. The cube's faces align loosely with cardinal directions, as though the block was meant to participate in the choreography of sun and sky. If this were mere quarry debris, why refine it with such meticulous precision? Why carve hundreds of tons of stone and then halt abruptly, leaving it tethered to the mountain by a narrow stem of rock? And why cultivate a shrine here centuries later if the site held no sacred meaning? No other quarry in Japan features its geometry or refinement. The entire mountain feels like a forgotten workshop, one where stone was shaped with intention that extended beyond engineering, perhaps to mirror the heavens. Some scholars imagine Ishi-no-Hōden as an altar bridging earth and sky, the illusion of levitation symbolizing the boundary between mortal and divine. The pond below might represent the primordial waters of creation, the monolith rising from it as a cosmic axis. Others think of it as a testing ground for ancient stonemasons experimenting with mass, balance, and symmetry, skills later applied in constructing the monumental Kofun of Asuka. Fringe theorists push the idea further, claiming it resembles a resonance chamber or an energy node, a relic of forgotten technology. They point to subtle compass drift near the site and the continuous motion of the pond's water even in completely still air. Local legends elevate the mystery. Stories of celestial stone drifting from the sky and anchoring itself here, reminiscent of old Japanese myths describing divine descent. For believers, the stone doesn't float. It's simply resting where a god chose to land. Today, the shrine remains a place of quiet reverence. Visitors climb a narrow stone stairway, rinse their hands at the spring, and stand beneath the enormous hovering block as birds settle into its crevices. During summer festivals, lanterns illuminate the pond, causing the stone to glow faintly, as if lit from within. Engineers who study its balance and weight walk away puzzled by how something so massive can appear so weightless. Some suggest the illusion itself was intentional, a gesture of mastery over stone that symbolizes spiritual transcendence. Others believe the monolith carries a message, that perfection can be sacred even without function. Whatever its origin, Ishi-no-Hōden remains one of Japan's most enigmatic creations, defying the very laws it relies upon. Standing before it, the air thick with humidity, the stone hovering in silence, it becomes easy to imagine the mountain breathing beneath it, holding the monolith in delicate suspension between worlds, neither fallen nor free, waiting eternally in the fragile space between possibility and divinity. From a floating stone of Hyōgo, the mystery expands once more, this time to Osaka. At ground level, Daisenryō looks like nothing more than a wooded hill surrounded by a tranquil moat. But from above, it transforms into something monumental. A perfect keyhole shape nearly half a kilometer long emerges from the landscape, so precise it seems designed with instruments centuries ahead of their time. This immense structure, attributed to Emperor Nintoku, ranks among the largest human-made monuments on Earth. 3 moats encircle it in widening rings, and dozens of satellite mounds form a geometric constellation that once governed the sacred geography of the region. Up close, the mound feels like the weight of an entire civilization pressed into Earth. But the true mystery lies inside, a place no one has seen. The central tomb remains sealed, forbidden to archaeologists by the Imperial Household Agency, who maintain it as an active imperial grave. As a result, the contents are unknown. Ground scans hint at internal structures, but reveal no clear chamber large enough to contain a coffin. This fuels speculation that the burial site may lie elsewhere entirely, and that the visible mound served another purpose beyond interment. Hundreds of Kofun at Japan, but none rival this one's perfection. Its axis aligns carefully with ancient directional systems, angled slightly southwest toward the inland sea. The harmony of its curves and embankments holds even across uneven terrain, a feat of engineering requiring extraordinary planning. Every slope, every moat, every berm appears calculated to be symmetrical from a viewpoint no human at the time could ever achieve. The sky. How did a 5th century society conceptualize an aerial design without the ability to see it from above? The question hangs over the monument like a shadow. What we know comes from smaller excavated Kofun, where archaeologists have found stone chambers, wooden coffins, bronze mirrors, iron weapons, glass beads, and ranks of Hanawa figurines arranged like eternal guardians. Construction layers of clay and sand reveal an advanced understanding of water control and seismic resistance. Soil surveys around Daisen Kofun show material hauled from multiple regions, meaning tens of thousands of workers carried earth for decades. The moats, up to 30 meters wide, act both as spiritual boundaries and sophisticated drainage systems that protect the mound from erosion. Japan had no written language during this era, yet the coordination required to build Daisen Kofun is on par with the pyramids of Giza or the great ziggurats of Mesopotamia. Its builders transformed an entire landscape into a single architectural statement. Chronicles name Emperor Nintoku as its occupant, but the timeline is contested. Some argue the mound predates centralized rule entirely. Others point out that the keyhole shape appears nowhere else in the world, raising the possibility that the design wasn't symbolic imitation, but something original, something with meaning lost time. Theories abound. Some interpret the circular rear as the heavens and the square front as the earth, joined together to form a cosmic key connecting realms. Others propose it as a giant calendar, its geometry tracking solstices or lunar cycles. Acoustic studies suggest the moats and embankments create subtle amplifications, possibly supporting ceremonial chanting or ritual events. More speculative voices suggest the keyhole shape reflects star patterns visible during the period, perhaps Orion's belt or a crossing of the Milky Way, or that the emperor buried within was believed to be divine, descended from celestial beings who instructed early Yamato rulers in sacred geometry. And then there are the old folk tales, nearly forgotten now, speaking of a monarch who built a mountain to converse with the stars, who vanished only when they answered him. Modern tools reveal only fragments. Drones confirm slight solstitial alignment. Radars detect compartments, but no central void. And surveys continue to raise new questions faster than they resolve them. From the ground, Daisen Kofun is a quiet forest. From the air, it is a message, a shape too intentional to ignore, too vast to dismiss, and too silent to reveal its purpose. It remains sealed, guarded, and enigmatic, a landscape-sized riddle carved into the earth, waiting for a moment when it may finally speak. Others point out that the region around Daisen once held a network of canals and earthworks whose functions remain ambiguous, hinting at a lost system of hydraulics, astronomy, or ritual movement. The monument begins to feel both familiar and alien, recognizable as a tomb, yet whispering of a larger design hidden in the land itself. Today, Daisenryō Kofun sits behind walls of trees and tradition. Visitors may circle the outer moat, but its heart remains unseen. Overhead, aircraft follow arcs once imagined only for gods, revealing from the sky what the builders never saw with their own eyes, a flawless green keyhole shimmering between forest and water. Modern Osaka rises around it, unaware that beneath streets and shops lies a structure older than nearly everything built above it. It is presence and absence at once, a silence so vast it becomes a map of time. Perhaps that is the real message it carries. Not merely a burial, but a vow that humanity will reshape the very earth in its search for eternity. Daisenryō remains sealed, suspended between devotion and geometry. And until the keyhole is finally opened, if it ever is, it will continue guarding whatever truth it holds, refusing revelation, reminding us that some monuments speak most loudly by staying silent. Far south in the Asuka hills, among glowing rice paddies and drifting morning fog, a cluster of giant stones rests like the skeleton of a mythic beast. From a distance, they seem scattered by nature. Step closer, and intention emerges, capstones balanced upon uprights, walls aligned with precision, an entrance passage that draws the living into a chamber once sealed from light. This is Ishibutai Kofun, the stone stage tomb, among the most extraordinary megalithic structures in Japan. Each granite slab weighs between 70 and 80 tons, yet they fit together cleanly without mortar. A chamber 19 meters long, 13 wide, and 7 high, so spacious one can stand inside, was raised entirely by ancient hands. At dawn, a thin blade of sunlight cuts through the entrance, lighting the chamber's heart as though the tomb remembers its own pulse. Tradition links this monument to Soga no Mako, the 6th century statesman who championed Buddhism in Japan. Chronicles describe his power and downfall, but none mention a tomb of this scale. Only in the 20th century did archaeologists confirm its identity, and even then the engineering astonished them. The roof stone alone, weighing roughly 77 tons, rests on 3 supports leveled so perfectly that daylight slips evenly through the seams. No visible tool marks explain the exactness, and no written record describes how these masses were quarried or transported across the uneven land. Around it, the Asuka plain hosts carved reliefs, curious stone forms, and Masuda-no-Iwafune itself, suggesting a valley where stonework was once an art of profound significance, perhaps a language in its own right. Originally, the chamber was encased in an earthen mound over 15 meters high, now eroded away. Inside, fragments of coffins, copper nails, and clay handle confirmed its funerary role. Its long corridor and main chamber resembled tombs in the Korean peninsula, hinting at cultural exchange. But even among such parallels, Ishibutai stands apart. The interlocking stones demonstrate a grasp of mechanical stability far beyond what the era is credited with. They rely solely on gravity and precision. No mortar, no wedges. Yet the structure remained watertight for over a millennium, surviving earthquakes and storms. Soil analysis shows no obvious quarry nearby. The stone's origin remains uncertain. Were they dragged from kilometers away, or were they remnants of an older megalithic landscape absorbed by later builders? If the tomb truly dates to the 6th century, how did its creators achieve tolerances rivaling those of the Old Kingdom pyramids or European dolmens? Why would a political figure choose such a unique burial when others preferred more modest mounds? And why is there no inscription, no Buddha symbol, no carving tying it firmly to Soga no Mako? Some scholars propose that Ishibutai's lower course may predate Asuka entirely, a megalithic chamber adopted and expanded by later elites. Others note its east-west alignment, consistent with solar observation rather than Buddhist practice, suggesting cosmological intent. Even the name Ishibutai, stone stage, was applied centuries later when locals believed the exposed structure looked like a theater platform. Its unveiling was accidental. Erosion removed the mound, transforming what was meant to be hidden into something monumental. Some interpret the tomb as a symbolic passage, echoing mythic journeys to the underworld in Japan's earliest tales, where ancestors traveled through stone corridors into realms of gods. The precise interlocking stones may have represented cosmic order as much as engineering necessity. Others reach further back, seeing parallels with prehistoric megalithic cultures across East Asia and beyond, proposing forgotten networks of shared knowledge. Fringe researchers speculate about acoustics or resonance. Inside the chamber, a single clap echoes 3 times before fading, as though some subtle tuning was intentional rather than accidental. The more the chamber is measured, the less accidental it seems. Now Ishibutai rests in the open air, its stones weathered by rain and silvered by lichen. Visitors step inside with quiet footsteps, touching the cold surfaces where ritual once unfolded. Light shifts throughout the day, warming the chamber at sunrise, cooling at dusk, creating the illusion that time flows around the stones rather than through them. People lower their voices without meaning to. Standing inside, one feels not confined but suspended, as though the chamber breathes. Archaeologists have scanned, mapped, and dated it, yet no single explanation captures the sense of something deeper at work. Tomb, temple, or something in between, it may not matter. The builders might not have drawn such distinctions. In stone, the boundaries between life, death, and divine presence could fade into a single act of creation. Ishibutai remains one of Asuka's great paradoxes. Too advanced for its age, too heavy to comprehend, too perfect to ignore. It endures like a buried heartbeat beneath the hills, reminding all who enter that memory lasts longest when carved in silence. High in the mossy forests of Shimane Prefecture, another enigma waits. A colossal outcrop rises like the roof of a temple half buried in the earth. Water trickles from beneath it. Cedar roots wrap around it like guardians, and the forest hushes as if entering a shrine. This is Kanayago Shrine Rock, sacred to the blacksmith god, whose domain is fire, metal, and creation. For over 1,000 years, people have worshipped this stone not as something built, but something revealed. At first glance, it seems like a natural boulder, but its form betrays intention. Its face is squared, its surface smooth, its edges shaped into terraces and grooves that resemble platforms or steps. The proportions feel deliberate, as though the mountain itself had been carved to embody a god's presence. The air around it carries a strange stillness, an old, slow heartbeat beneath the moss. According to legend, Kanayago Kami descended here in a blaze of molten light. The rock, they say, once poured liquid metal from its heart, and the god taught humans the craft of forging iron. For centuries, blacksmiths sent offerings of ore and tools to the stone, believing all metal returned spiritually to its source. The myth is poetic, but the rock's geometry complicates it. It does not resemble volcanic flow or natural fracture. Its lines are rectilinear, its slopes shaped as though cut. The terraces suggest human intention, yet there is no record of quarrying or carving, and no single culture claims to have shaped it. Kanayago rock sits somewhere between nature and art, myth and geology. A stone that feels alive, as though the mountain breathed it into being. A monument revealed rather than built. One that suggests Japan's ancient relationship with stone was not merely technical, but spiritual, cosmological, and deeply mysterious. Some stones look unmistakably worked, their faces trimmed as though shaped by blades. Others seem sculpted by wind and rain alone, yet their alignment feels anything but accidental. At the summit, a flat platform faces due east, and at dawn the first light strikes it with such precision that a carved groove channels a reflection like liquid gold. The effect feels intentional, a seamless union of nature and craft so subtle that no one can tell where human effort ends and divine shaping begins. Archaeological surveys suggest Kanayago Iwaya served as a ritual center long before any shrine stood nearby. Fragments of pottery, smoothed offering stones, and faint pathways connect the site to ancient ironworking valleys deeper in the mountains. The terrain surrounding the monolith bears traces of early quarrying and iron sand extraction, evidence that this was once the technological heart of Izumo, the mythic birthplace of many Japanese gods. Some scholars propose that the stone acted as an observation altar aligned to solstices or seasonal markers. Its carved grooves map the play of light across the year. Others note parallels with carved sanctuaries in Korea and along the Sea of Japan, hinting at prehistoric cultural exchange. Yet despite these associations, the stone is devoid of ornamentation. No inscriptions, no divine faces. Only geometry, weight, and equilibrium, as though the builders believed that sacredness was something revealed within the stone rather than imposed on it. If the formation were wholly natural, why do terraces appear carved into its walls? If it were artificial, why leave no tool marks, no quarry debris, no structure crowning its summit? The mass is tremendous. Hundreds of tons of granite rising from a steep slope, yet every contour reads as intentional. Geologists argue that erosion cannot fully account for the straight edges visible from the eastern trail, while the absence of foundries contradicts legends of molten metal flowing from the rock's heart. Yet the surrounding soil remains rich in magnetite and hematite, the very ores used in ancient smelting. Perhaps the myth of divine metalwork was symbolic, describing the transformation of earth into spirit just as much as, or into iron. Night deepens the enigma. Travelers sometimes report metallic ringing echoing across the slopes, faint hammer-like tones carried by the wind threading through hidden crevices. Scientists call it resonance. Pilgrims call it the voice of Kanayago Kami. To some, the rock represents an early Japanese belief in living geology, a world where stone, water, and metal were animated by unseen presence. Others imagine a practical past, in which the terraces once supported smelters or early astronomers marking celestial cycles. Esoteric researchers envision the rock as one node within a prehistoric energy grid stretching across sacred mountains, each stone a conduit for geomagnetic breath. Even the modest shrine beside it seems to acknowledge that architecture can only stand in the shadow of such magnitude. Pilgrims still bring small iron offerings, touching the stone to feel for vibrations. Folklore says those who hear a faint hum gain understanding of creation itself, that all transformation begins with fire, pressure, and patience. Today the forest has reclaimed much of the old approach path. Sunlight pools through cedar branches, casting shifting gold across mossy terraces. The edges of the stone remain remarkably sharp, its carved shells now cradling ferns instead of flame. Priests occasionally sweep fallen leaves and place paper charms that flutter like white wings in the mountain breeze. Few tourists reach the site. There are no signs, no crowds, only cicadas, dripping water, and a silence that feels tuned to an older frequency. Those who do arrive often describe a sensation of the air vibrating subtly, as though the stone itself were alive. Scientists dismiss it as suggestion. Believers call it presence. Standing before the monolith, you begin to understand why ancient builders might have seen stone as a message rather than material. Kanayago Iwaya endures as a conversation between earth and eternity, a sanctuary built not to house a god, but to let a god breathe. Beneath its moss and myth, Japan's oldest craftsmanship glows quietly, the art of making the immovable feel alive. Along the wind-lashed coast of Tottori Prefecture, where dunes shift and breakers hammer the cliffs, another mystery scatters the hillsides. Colossal boulders, some upright, some reclined, some neatly paired. The slopes as if left behind by giants. Farmers call them the Yonago giant stones. No one knows who placed them, or if anyone ever did. Some stand like guardians facing the sea. Others lie half buried with surfaces smoothed by salt and time. The largest weigh dozens of tons. Their faces square just enough to suggest purpose without revealing it. From afar they appear random, but wander among them and patterns begin to surface. Alignments along ridges, twin stones framing distant horizons, circles that catch the rising sun. Local myths claim these stones are mountain gods turned to stone at dawn, frozen as they march toward the sea. Others whisper they mark the graves of beings older than memory. The coast here feels like a threshold between worlds, a landscape that reads like a half-erased sentence in an ancient script. Most of Japan's megaliths hide inland, sheltered as tombs or sanctuaries. But the Yonago stones confront the elements directly, standing exposed to centuries of storm and salt. From certain angles, their silhouettes mirror the shapes of mountains across the bay. From others, they resemble a celestial diagram carved into the land. Surveyors have measured pairs aligned with the summer solstice sunrise, reminiscent of prehistoric sky-watching sites stretching from Eurasia to the Pacific. Yet no artifacts, carvings, or cultural remnants tie the stones to any known people. Archaeologists classify them as natural erratics toppled by erosion or seismic forces. But questions linger. Why do some rest in such precarious balance? Why do others form archways wide enough for a person to pass beneath? Are these arrangements natural, intentional, or a dialogue between the two? Geological tests show the stones are granite unlike the immediate surroundings, likely carried from kilometers inland. Several stones bear shallow grooves and cup-like depressions, features that could be natural weathering or purposeful grinding. Soil samples nearby reveal traces of ancient charcoal, hinting at ritual fires or long-ago habitation. Local folklore links the stones to the Izumo creation cycle, in which God descended to shape the islands of Japan with colossal tools. In this telling, each boulder is a remnant of divine craft, a hammerhead, a pillar, a fragment of celestial wall. Modern theories vary wildly. Some imagine the site as a prehistoric calendar, where priests track time through shifting shadows. Others see a quarry abandoned mid-work, the stones left behind for nature to reclaim. But the surfaces of several boulders are too clean, too symmetrical to dismiss as coincidence. If it were a quarry, why is there no evidence of extraction beyond this isolated cluster? Why do smaller stones form arcs echoing ritual circles found in Jomon-era sites hundreds of kilometers away? Maybe the stones were shaped by tectonic upheaval, arranged by giants of geology rather than giants of myth. Or perhaps the ancient mind saw intention where we see randomness, reading the landscape as a sacred script written by Earth itself. What remains undeniable is a feeling, Standing among the Yonago stones, wind tearing across the plateau, the sea roaring below, that some kind of order exists here, whether carved by hands, by mountains, or by memory. The stones endure, neither confirming nor denying the stories woven around them. Like all Japan's megalithic enigmas, they wait for interpretation, standing silent in the coastal wind, inviting the living to decipher what the ancient world chose to leave unsaid. Satellite imagery suggests the stones align not only with the sun but with the curvature of the coastline itself, as if the entire bay were part of a larger pattern, a sacred geometry stretching across land and tide. Some folklore say the Yonago monoliths are earth anchors, boundary markers between the human realm and the spirit world beneath the sea. Others imagine they're the remnants of a forgotten civilization that understood stone in ways modern minds hardly grasp. In these stories, the coast once held a megalithic port city whose temples and terraces were swallowed by rising waters, leaving behind only the heaviest fragments. Ancient astronaut theorists extend the idea even further, suggesting the stones once served as navigational beacons or energy nodes aligned with Yonaguni far to the south, a prehistoric network mapping the Pacific Rim. They point to compass anomalies near certain stones, the way needles twitch and animals avoid sleeping nearby. Whether electromagnetic quirk or mythic imagination, the effect lingers. People often say they feel watched here, as if the stones are remembering. Today, the Yonago giants sit largely forgotten behind fields and cedar stands. Moss softens their edges. Tall grass hides the spaces between them. The wind carries the smell of pine and sea salt. Sometimes fishermen leave small offerings, coins, folded charms, a splash of sake, thanking unseen forces for calm waters. When storms roll inland, lightning strikes one particular boulder again and again, illuminating the hills in silver veins while the stone itself remains unscathed. Photographers who catch that flash say it feels like a warning or a blessing, a reminder of who truly shaped this land. Standing among the monoliths at dusk, listening to the surf and wind in tandem, you feel suspended between past and myth, between Japan of emperors and a Japan of giants. The stones offer no answers. They simply exist, immense quiet, breathing in rhythm with the tide. Perhaps that is the point. Some monuments are not made to be understood, only felt. And in the hush after the wind dies, the Yonago stones seem almost to lean toward you, as if remembering a time when they, too, were alive. Far to the south, across the turquoise waters of Okinawa, lies Taketomi Island, a place of coral sand, stone paths, and red tile roofs guarded by Shisa lions. Beyond the village, where vines coil over limestone ridges, stands a formation few visitors ever see, a massive capstone balanced atop two natural pillars, known simply as the Taketomi Megalith. At first glance, it looks like the work of erosion. Then you notice the symmetry, the level plane of the top slab, the way the gap beneath it lines perfectly with the distant horizon. At sunset during the equinox, the sun threads through that opening, casting a blade of gold across the forest floor. No inscription names its makers. No shrine claims it. It rises in silence, an altar of stone and light older than memory. The capstone spans more than 6 meters and weighs nearly 100 tons, yet it rests in perfect balance upon its supports. Erosion alone can't account for the smooth bearing surfaces or the precise fit. The alignment is unmistakable, directly toward Remote Island, and beyond that, toward the azimuth of the equinox sunset. Researchers studying prehistoric Okinawan sites note similar solar alignments across the Yaima archipelago, forming what might once have been a chain of seasonal markers for navigators or skywatchers. Elders remember stories of a time before calendars, when farmers watched the sun pass through these stone gates to mark the turning of seasons. But the scale of the Taketomi Megalith exceeds practicality. If nature formed it, why does it align so cleanly? If humans adjusted it, how did they handle a stone so large without leaving clear traces? Beneath the formation, archaeologists have found coral tools and pottery fragments dating back 3,000 years. The stone itself is far older, a reef lifted from the sea by tectonic movement. Between uplift and human presence lies the mystery. Did early islanders modify a natural formation, or did nature provide the foundation for a ritual monument they only refined? Similar dolmen-like structures appear across the Pacific, but none stand as far south in Japan. The site's isolation has preserved it. Only wind, roots, and salt have shaped its surfaces since. Old rituals once took place here. During solstice dawns, villagers left offerings beneath the stone, shells, fruit, small charms thanking the sun for its return. The ceremonies faded, yet the megalith retains a quiet pulse as if waiting for the next alignment. Some visitors see signs of human refinement. Flattened ledges, a carved step, smaller stones arranged like markers. Others argue these are tricks of perspective or natural fissures softened by weathering. Limestone is easy to shape and easy to lose evidence upon. Every answer dissolves into another question. The scale challenges both explanations. It is too perfect to be accidental, too monumental to attribute to small island communities. Yet, prehistoric people often achieve feats we still underestimate. The stone sits at the edge of plausibility, its contradiction becoming its truth. Some island legends speak of Amamikyu, the goddess who created the Ryukyu Islands by placing stones brought from the heavens. Others say the megalith frames the rising Pleiades, connecting sea, sky, and creation. Comparative mythologists note parallels in Polynesia, where stone gates aligned with solstices honored ancestral gods and navigators. Perhaps Taketomi was part of a broader oceanic tradition, or perhaps it is unique, a local masterpiece of observation and devotion. A few fringe theorists imagine it as an ancient energy node, a southern counterpart to Yonaguni's underwater monument, and the stone sanctuaries farther north. Whether or not such a network existed, the idea feels fitting. The megalith seems less like an isolated stone and more like the last echo of a prehistoric imagination capable of reading meaning in the raw forces of sky and sea. Today, the Taketomi Megalith sleeps under banyan shade and orchid vines. Cicadas hum through the humid air. The ocean shimmers just beyond the trees. When the sun nears the horizon, its light slips through the stone gate, igniting the interior in gold before fading. For a moment, the forest holds its breath. It feels like watching a thought older than language, a geometry of faith etched into the land. Villagers still call it the place where the sun rests. Children play nearby, unaware they are tracing shadows once used to count the heavens. Archaeologists debate. Travelers speculate. The stone remains unchanged. It neither names its builders nor denies them. It simply continues its conversation with the sky, one equinox at a time. And perhaps that is the quiet secret of Japan's megaliths. They are not monuments to what once was, but to what still endures, the dialogue between human wonder and the ancient patience of the earth. As night gathers over Taketomi and the first stars appear above the sea, the megalith becomes a silhouette within a silhouette, a gate that once framed the sun now framing eternity. As darkness deepens over Taketomi, the megalith becomes a quiet threshold between worlds. The banyan branches sway above it like slow-drifting constellations, and fireflies drift in scattered constellations of their own, tiny embers echoing the lost fires of ancient rites. The stone rests unchanged, yet everything around it moves, wind carving invisible lines of forest, waves mapping rhythms on the distant shore, and stars rising one by one in their ancient procession, as though answering a call older than civilization. Those who remain near the megalith long after sunset speak of a subtle shift in the air, a thinning of the ordinary. The silence grows denser, layered, as if filled with memories. Some visitors describe a sense of standing not simply before a stone, but before an idea, something both unfinished and eternal. The capstone glimmers faintly in moonlight, its edges soft and silvered, its shadow stretching across the earth like the hand of time. The pillars beneath it seem impossibly narrow, fragile even, yet they hold without strain, as though the stone's weight were not measured in tons but in a balance long mastered. The island's elders say that at night the megalith becomes a gate, not to any physical realm, but to a way of perceiving the world that modern minds often lose. A way of listening, a way of waiting. They claim the ancient people who lived here did not look to the sky merely to measure time. They listened to it, the wind through coral cliffs, the subtle vibration of tide against reef, the resonance of rock touched by light. Knowledge was not recorded in books, but in the rhythms of the earth itself. Stone was chosen not for its permanence, but for its ability to convey meaning when words failed. One elder, now long past, once recounted an inherited tale. that in the earliest days, before the islands had names, there was no boundary between human and divine. The people built nothing grand because the land was already sacred. When they shaped stone, they shaped only what nature had begun, refining its edges so that sunlight or moonlight might reveal a truth hidden beneath. They believed that stones were not dead matter but sleeping forces, waiting to awaken when touched by purpose. The Taketomi Megalith, he believed, was one such sleeper, not awakened by labor or ritual, but by alignment, by the exact moment when the sun struck its heart and the earth remembered the sky. Modern archaeologists stand at the same spot and feel something they rarely admit aloud, a hesitation, a sense that the tools of their trade, measurements, stratigraphy, dating, cannot fully explain why this formation feels intentional. Even if natural erosion carved the base, even if the capstone fell into perfect equilibrium by chance, the alignment remains. How do you classify coincidence when it behaves like design? How do you distinguish a natural altar from one used as such for generations? The divide between nature and culture is thinner here, blurred by salt and time. One researcher spent an entire season documenting angles and shadow cycles. He noticed that the megalith frames not just the equinox sunset, but also the first appearance of certain stars at specific times of year. The Pleiades, Orion's belt, the bright arc of Sirius, each seems to rise in relation to the stone's aperture when viewed from particular points along the old coral paths. The researcher proposed that the megalith may have once served as a multi-seasonal celestial tracker. His findings sparked brief excitement, then were quietly set aside, because without additional archaeological evidence, they remain difficult to prove. But privately, he still believes. He says standing beside the stone at dawn feels like standing on the edge of a calendar written in the language of the universe. Other scholars look at the stone and see something broader, a pattern repeating from the Ryukyus to Polynesia to Micronesia. Massive stones aligned to the heavens, built or modified by cultures skilled in ocean navigation, star mapping, and timekeeping long before written records. Could ancient Pacific peoples have shared a symbolic vocabulary of stone and sky? Could Taketomi be one node in an arc of knowledge that crossed the ocean long before modern maps existed? Such theories walk a fine line between scientific curiosity and romantic speculation, yet the stone seems to invite such ideas simply by existing. Islanders approach the megalith with a different understanding, not of data, but of belonging. They treat the stone as a relative, a presence woven into the island's identity. During storms, they believe the stone protects the village by absorbing the force of the winds. During droughts, they leave small offerings in the crevice beneath the capstone, not to ask, but to acknowledge, because gratitude, not demand, is a proper language for speaking to ancient things. Children play near it without apprehension, climbing the lower roots and tracing the stone's surface with their fingers. They are told gently not to climb the pillars, not because of danger, but because the stone deserves respect. It is an elder among elders. At times, the megalith feels like a threshold between eras, a relic of a world where humans depended entirely on the land's rhythms, yet understood them intimately, a world that modern life obscures but never erases. Standing before the stone, it becomes easy to imagine a time when people marked the solstice not with mathematics but with reverence. When the sun dipped through the stone gate, villagers would gather in quiet awe, knowing that the seasons were shifting and that they were being reminded of their place in the cycle of life. They did not need names for constellations or theories of celestial motion. The stone translated the sky for them. Some researchers have suggested that the megalith was once connected to a wider ritual landscape. Smaller stones now buried or eroded, pathways reclaimed by forest. They imagined that the equinox alignment was merely the centerpiece of a larger ceremonial choreography. Perhaps processions once moved through the forest at twilight, torches flickering against the limestone walls, drums echoing in slow cadence, guiding the community toward a gate of stone and light. Perhaps chants rose when the sun centered between the pillars, marking a moment when heaven and earth briefly touched. These images are speculation, but they arise naturally from the atmosphere of the place. The landscape invites myth, because it feels like one. Even scientists who reject symbolic interpretations cannot ignore the stone's uncanny poise. The geometry, the balance, the angles The formation exerts a gravitational presence on the imagination. It is not merely an artifact, but an experience, a boundary where the measurable and the immeasurable meet. Tonight, as the sky deepens from indigo to black, the stars bloom in full clarity above Taketomi. The megalith becomes a silhouette against a cosmos older than the island itself. If you stand in the right spot, the stone frames a cluster of stars perfectly, as though the builders or nature wanted those watching from below to lift their eyes and understand that they were part of something vast. In that moment, the stone does not feel ancient. It feels awake. The night breeze rustles the leaves. The ocean sighs. The stone stands unmoving, yet everything about it suggests motion. The turning of seasons, the rhythm of tides, the long breath of time. You feel, for a moment, that the megalith is not remembering the past, but anticipating the future, as if its true purpose has yet to be realized. Perhaps its builders, whether human or elemental, never intended it as a relic. Perhaps it was made as a question, not an answer, a place where those who seek meaning might come to listen, a shape of silence holding conversation with the sky. A reminder that some truths are not recorded in history, but in the angles of light and shadow. And so the Taketomi Megalith endures. Not solved, not explained, simply continuing its dialogue with the sun, the stars, and anyone willing to stand before it long enough to hear what the earth has been whispering for millennia.